Before the rescue shuttles ever reached Vera 9, the truth had already escaped into orbit. A wounded human soldier, left beneath a dead war machine, had used his final beacon not for himself, but for 6 others. And the alien Valkyrie sent to recover only her own people would soon place her spear across his hospital bed, naming him something no enemy had ever been called before: equal witness. Welcome to Intergalactic Untold. We wish you a joyful viewing experience and a day filled with happiness. Now, let's begin this story among the stars. Gravity made mistakes on Vera 9 after the coils broke. Frozen soot lifted from the battlefield instead of falling, rising in slow black ribbons around the legs of dead machines, then settling again over cracked armor, torn antennas, and the burned shell of a Terran walker buried nose first in the mud. Sergeant Nathan Carter woke beneath that walker with his cheek pressed against frozen clay and the taste of copper behind his teeth. For 3 seconds, his mind gave him Ohio. Rain on a barn roof. His uncle cursing at a tractor that had more pride than horsepower. His mother calling from the porch that dinner was getting cold. Then his helmet clicked, the scrubbers coughed, and Vera 9 came back with red warnings across his broken visor. Oxygen, 11%. Suit power, 6%. Left leg response, none. Nate did not try to sit up. Panic wasted air. His father had taught him that while changing a tire on the shoulder of I-71 with trucks blowing past close enough to rock the pickup. Small moves first. Check what still answers. His right hand flexed badly, but it flexed. His left hand lay pinned under a strip of insulation foam. His radio hung from a cracked mount near his shoulder, spitting static in short, embarrassed bursts. Command channel was empty. No medevac chatter. No platoon calls. No one asking for coordinates. The silence felt too neat, like a room cleaned before guests arrived. Nate turned his wrist 1 inch at a time until his glove reached the emergency beacon clipped to his chest plate. The main array had burned out, but the local triage pulse still had a few hundred feet of reach if the ridge did not swallow it. He thumbed the switch. 1 greened up blinked on his HUD. Then another. Then 4 more. 6 life signs scattered across the slope beyond the walker's broken shoulder. The suit marked his own signal first, bright and central, because software had no manners. Nate stared until the letters steadied. Rain still had pressure loss, but brain activity. Moreno had a compromised harness. Adler and Briggs were close enough to share heat. Shaw had a low pulse under armor compression. Tanaka's suit kept sending corrupted packets from near the old relay trench. Nate dragged a breath through the filter and opened manual settings. The suit warned him when he cut his own rescue priority. It warned him again when he pushed the 6 other signals above his. He cleared both warnings with a muddy thumb. Yeah, he whispered. Put it in my file. His marker dimmed. The others sharpened, each one tagged with oxygen, distance in feet, and injury class. He corrected Rains to the top of the list because a medic awake was worth more than a sergeant trapped under 38 tons of bad engineering. The sky changed color before he heard them. 6 white shapes dropped through the cloud break, wing harnesses folding gravity around their bodies. They came silent, disciplined, too clean for the field below them. Aurelian Valkyries. Retrieval officers. Enemy angels, if angels carried spears, and red casualty rights by nationality. The lead Valkyrie landed 20 feet away without splashing mud. Tall, blue-silver skin visible along the jaw where her helmet opened. Gold eyes moving over wreckage, heat blooms, insignia, threat lines. Her spear angled toward Nate's chest and stayed there. He could have raised both hands if both hands worked. He could have begged in trade dialect. Instead, he dragged the cracked data tab from his chest pouch and pushed it across the mud with 2 fingers. She did not take it at first. Smart. He liked that. Her visor scanned it from a distance, checking for traps, trackers, dirty soldier tricks. Nate waited because waiting was the only thing he had plenty of. When she finally picked it up, his breath dropped to 9%. The tab opened across her visor. 6 suit IDs, 6 locations, 6 survival estimates, and his own name reduced to the bottom of the list. Kalira Voss looked from the data to the ridge, then back to the white human soldier pinned under the ruined machine. Nate tapped his chest plate once, shook his head, and pointed toward the green dots burning faintly through the storm. Not me. The wind dragged battlefield dust across his visor until she became a pale shape in the static. Behind her, Another Valkyrie called an order in a voice sharp enough to cut metal. Kalira did not answer. Her spear lowered by 1 inch. Then, slowly, with the weapon still in her hand and no trust yet in her eyes, she knelt beside him. Kalira Voss did not touch the human until the tab proved clean. Her visor ran 3 scans across the cracked Terran plastic, hunting for proximity charges, viral code, deadman transmitters, all the ugly little surprises soldiers learned when rules stopped matching. The tab gave her none of that. It gave her distances in feet, oxygen percentages, suit pressure loss, pulse strength, 6 life signs arranged in a triage order so precise it irritated her. Enemy data should not look like duty. The human watched her through the broken glass of his helmet with one gray-blue eye, quiet except for the shallow pull of his scrubbers. His own marker sat at the bottom of the list, dimmed by manual override. Kalira enlarged the log and found the edit trail. Sergeant Nathan Carter had reduced his rescue priority 3 times. The first attempt had failed because his glove missed the command. The second had triggered a warning. The third had worked. She looked down at him. You moved yourself last. His mouth shifted under the visor. Had to. Suit kept being polite. That is not what your emergency protocol requires. Yeah, well. His breath fogged the crack in the glass. Software didn't take the same oath I did. Wind slid frozen, soot between them. Kalira kept her spear angled low, not pointed at his face, not pointed away either. Balance mattered. So did distance. The medic, she said. You placed her first. Rains. Her pressure loss is severe. She patches people for a living. If she is unconscious, she patches no one. Then wake her up. It was not bravado. His voice had no room for it. It came out dry, practical, almost annoyed that she needed the steps explained. Kalira zoomed the signal cluster. Rains lay 118 feet northeast, under partial cover. Moreno, 146 feet, hanging inverted by harness strain. Adler and Briggs, 190 feet, close enough for shared thermal bleed. Shaw, 227 feet, armor compression below a turret housing. Tanaka, 263 feet, erratic signal near the old relay trench. The order made sense. That bothered her more than a plea would have. Captain Ravik's voice cut across her squad channel. Voss, status. Kalira did not look away from Nathan. 1 Terran survivor pinned under wreckage. 6 additional life signs in adjacent debris field. Aurelian. Negative. A pause followed, short and clean. Then mark and move. We have our own dead west of the ridge. Nathan heard only her silence, but he read rank in it. Soldiers understood other soldiers even through enemy helmets. Your boss? He asked. My captain. Sounds busy. He is correct under operational code. Usually the worst kind of correct. Her eyes narrowed. You speak casually for a man with 9% oxygen. Trying to keep it at 8. Another channel flashed across her visor. Denial sweep window. 3 minutes, 20 seconds. Orbital thermal sterilization. Official language for making a battlefield easier to explain. Kalira closed the alert and opened the tab again. Why reduce your chance of recovery for them? Nathan's good. I drifted toward the ridge. It did not soften. It fixed, like he was lining up a bolt by feel. Because I'm the one with the button. That is insufficient. No. His fingers scraped mud, searching for the beacon controls without strength enough to lift them. It's just inconvenient. Behind Kalira, Sarah Mav landed with her retrieval sled hovering 2 feet above the ground, its gravsling collars locked in a neat row along the side rail. Kalira, Sarah said in Aurelian, low and careful. Tell me we are not doing what your posture says. Kalira handed her the tab. Sarah scanned it, then glanced toward the ridge. Her jaw tightened. Ravik will put this before the war table. Only if we survive the next 3 minutes. That is not comforting. It was not meant to be. Nathan shifted, and the walker answered with a deep metallic groan. Kalira stepped closer before choosing to. His chest plate alarm flickered from yellow to red. He saw her notice and shook his head once, small but stubborn. Them first. No trust passed between them. Not yet. Trust required history, and they had only weather, wreckage, and a list that should not exist. But the list was real. The life signs were real. The denial clock was real. Kalira rose, clipped the Terran tab to her wrist display, and turned toward the ridge. Sarah, collars ready. Sarah muttered something unfit for a ceremonial house record and armed the sled. Kalira looked back once. Nathan had already stopped watching her. His eye had found the 6 green dots again, as if staring could hold them in the world. She lowered her spear toward the storm, not in surrender, not in mercy, but in the first thin shape of a decision. I will verify the medic, she said. Nathan's mouth barely moved. She hates being late. Kalira stepped into the dirty snow, and the sled followed her toward Rains's fading signal. Kalira reached Rains's signal in 22 seconds because the sled did most of the running. It skimmed behind her over the broken slope, grav motors whining softly, 6 rescue collars blinking amber along its rail. The Valkyries had not been built for mercy. That was what children learned in Aurelian schools. They were built for recovery, for keeping noble dead from being left in mud where politics could not frame them properly. But old battlefield law had teeth hidden in it. Any marked medical worker transmitting a life sign could be stabilized by the nearest retrieval unit, regardless of flag, so long as the act was logged. Kalira opened that clause on her wrist display and left it there where Sarah could see. Sarah gave the legal text one glance. You are using a footnote to start a diplomatic fire. Then pull faster. Rains lay beneath a sheet of insulation plating. Her white medic band cracked, but visible beneath frost. Kalira lifted the plate with her spear field while Sarah slid a collar under the woman's neck seal and locked it to the upper spine of the armor. The collar chirped, read Terran anatomy badly, corrected itself from Nathan's tab, and lifted Rains 4 inches off the ground. Rains woke enough to swing one weak hand toward Kalira's wrist. Carter. Her voice scraped through the translator. Kalira clipped the collar line to the sled. He sent the list. Rains stopped fighting. Not trust. Recognition. That would do. Moreno came next, hanging upside down in a supply crawler with one boot caught in a snapped harness. His sleeve pocket had torn open, and a laminated picture stuck to the ice near his shoulder. A brown dog with one crooked ear and a red bandana that said Buster in faded marker. Sarah cut the harness while Kalira secured the collar. Moreno muttered something about feeding the dog before Monday. Kalira picked up the picture, slid it into his pocket, and said nothing when Sarah noticed. Adler and Briggs were trapped under a fallen comms mast, close enough that their suit heaters had synced automatically. Briggs kept talking to Adler about a baseball game no one here could see. Bottom of the 9th, Briggs whispered as Kalira braced the mast. Tell him that. Adler's eyes stayed shut. He hates baseball. Yeah, but he hates losing more. Kalira lifted. Sarah moved both collars in one practice sweep, left hand to Adler, right hand to Briggs, lines crossing for half a second before the sled untangled them with a soft correction tone. Shaw's signal almost vanished under a burned turret housing. The armor compression had fooled the first scan, hiding him beneath a slab of composite no wider than a dining table and heavier than a family car. Sarah dropped to one knee and shoved a rescue collar through a gap barely wider than her wrist. I have him. Pulse. Kalira asked. Low. Present. Extract. The collar tightened around Shaw's upper armor, distributing pull through the chest frame instead of the neck seal. The sled reversed 3 feet. Metal groaned. Shaw slid free into the dirty snow, unconscious but breathing, one hand still closed around an empty ration wrapper like it mattered. Sarah clipped him beside Moreno and did not look at Kalira when she said, That is 5. Tanaka was not under wreckage. She knelt in a shallow trench beside a broken relay post, suit locked from the waist down, both arms wrapped around a field recorder the size of a lunchbox. Her visor was cracked wide across one side, but the hand holding the recorder stayed steady when Kalira approached. Back up, Tanaka said. Sergeant Carter provided your location. Kalira held up the tab. Tanaka's shoulders lowered by less than an inch. He alive? Pinned. Of course he is. Sarah moved in with the final collar, but Tanaka angled the recorder away first. This goes with me. What is it? Kalira asked. Tanaka stared at the Aurelian seal on her armor, measuring enemy, officer, witness, risk. The denial timer pulsed red on Kalira's visor. 34 seconds. Tanaka made her choice with the grim boredom of a soldier signing a form that might get everyone fired. Withdrawal logs. Command traffic. Proof they marked us gone while we were still breathing. Sarah went still. Kalira took the recorder only after Tanaka let go. That mattered. She clipped the device beneath her belt plate, then locked Tanaka's collar to the sled. 6 amber lights turned green. The sled rose with its impossible cargo and pivoted toward the extraction hollow behind the ridge. Captain Ravik's voice cut in, smooth enough for an inquiry room. Voss, you have diverted retrieval assets to enemy personnel. Kilira looked back toward the walker where Nathan's marker had dimmed to a thin, stubborn pulse. I have stabilized 6 protected life signs under battlefield law. You will return to formation. After one more verification, Sarah's head snapped toward her. Kilira. Kilira was already running back through the lifting snow, the recorder tapping against her armor with every stride. The human had given her a list. The list had proved true. Now the field had given her an account no command would want opened, and accounts had a way of making orders sound smaller. Kilira reached Nathan as the first edge of the denial sweep turned the ridge above him white. It did not explode. Official weapons rarely needed drama. The orbital array poured heat into selected coordinates, boiling ice from metal, smoothing tire tracks, boot prints, leaked coolant, anything a committee might later have to explain. The walker shielded him from the first wash by accident, not kindness. His suit alarms had gone thin and tired, like they knew no one important was listening. Kilira slid down beside him, planted her spear under the bent support beam, and opened the field wide enough to make the weapon hum in her bones. The beam lifted half an inch. Nathan's eye opened behind cracked glass. You get them? 6 stabilized. Extraction sled is moving. His mouth shifted. Shaw. Alive. Sarah pulled him with a collar. He closed his eye for one beat too long. Good. The beam sagged against her spear field. Kilira locked a grav hook to his chest plate and another to the walker frame. Your lower armor is fused. Yeah. Been meaning to complain. There is a manual release behind your left hip. Can't reach it. Tell me where. He swallowed, and the sound came through his helmet as a dry click. 2 inches below the cracked yellow stripe. Covered in mud. Lever pulls out, then down. If it snaps, lie and say it wasn't my fault. She found the lever by feel. It resisted. The heat sweep rolled closer, turning the frozen soot around them into steam that crawled low over the ground. Kilira pulled. Nothing. Nathan's right hand dragged through the mud and closed around a torn cable. He looped it over the lever, using his trapped body as a brace. On 3, he said. That is inadvisable. Most of my career. She did not smile. She counted. On 3. He pulled the cable, and she drove the spear field upward. The lock tore free with a sound like a door being ripped off a house. Nathan came loose all at once. Kilira caught him before the ruined armor twisted wrong, clipped the grav hook tight, and dragged him into motion as the walker behind them began to smoke. He made no heroic sound. His jaw locked. His gloved hand found the recorder at her belt, tapped it once, then fell away. She understood the question. Tanaka entrusted it to me. Good word, he breathed. She carried him down a drainage cut toward a half-buried hatch marked with 2 faded seals, Terran blue on the left, Aurelian white on the right, both scratched by years of weather and newer neglect. Nathan saw the door through one half-open eye. Treaty station. Abandoned. That's what people call things when they don't want to maintain them. Can you open it? Kick the lower panel. You said that about another door. Terran design philosophy. Kilira kicked the lower panel. The hatch coughed dust, then shifted open 6 inches. She wedged her spear in the gap and forced it wider, pulling Nathan through just as the heat swept past over the cut and turned the outside world into a soft, muffled roar. The station smelled of old insulation, mineral damp, and cold circuitry. Emergency strips blinked amber along the floor. A treaty map still hung under cracked glass, its borderlines drawn by people who had once believed ink could restrain armies. Below it, a dead placard carried 3 languages and one warning Nathan read before she did. Accepted testimony will be duplicated to neutral archives before fleet review. He breathed a thin laugh. Both armies hated that feature. Kilira lowered him onto a thermal mat beneath a dead console. He looked smaller without the walker over him, not safer. His white skin had gone pale under grime, brown hair flattened with sweat, mouth tight around pain he refused to spend out loud. She sealed the worst leak in his side with an Aurelian clot patch. He flinched, then stared at the ceiling. Feels expensive. It is. Bill my colonel. Her left wing harness sparked behind her shoulder. The damaged stabilizer had cracked during the lift, crystal housing bent out of alignment. Nathan noticed because wounded humans apparently remained offensive to probability. Your wings pulling left. It carried us. So did my high school truck. Didn't make it street legal. She turned toward the recorder console instead. Conserve air. Hand me the tool roll. No, then your next landing's gonna be a rumor. The station shuddered under the last of the sweep. Kalira looked at the recorder, at the sealed hatch, at the man who had moved himself last on his own rescue list. Then she placed the tool roll beside his hand. He could not lift the driver, so he guided her fingers instead. Quarter turn. Hold pressure. Not that line unless she wanted the harness to bite her. He spoke in scraps, practical and half annoyed, never asking whether she believed him. Trust did not arrive. Not yet. But the stabilizer light changed from red to amber, and the old treaty console accepted Tanaka's recorder with a low, waking chirp. The treaty console woke like an old clerk dragged back to work after everyone had agreed to forget the office existed. Amber light crawled across cracked glass, touching Terran letters first, then Aurelian script beneath them, both languages dulled by dust and years of official neglect. Nathan lay on the thermal mat with one hand near the tool roll, breathing through the narrow white line Kalira had patched into his suit feed. He did not look better. He looked arranged, like a problem set carefully on a table. The recorder clicked inside the console bay. Access denied flashed once, then shifted to manual witness interface required. Nathan saw the message reflected on the ceiling. Yeah, he murmured. Old treaty box. Wants somebody to admit they touched it. Kalira wiped grime from the lower keys with her thumb. Can you operate it from there? Depends how much dignity we're willing to lose. Yours or mine? At this point, shared account. She turned just enough to look at him. He gave the smallest shrug his ribs allowed. Left side. Pull the yellow cover. It is brown. It used to have goals. Kalira pulled the cover. A port opened with a dry snap. The recorder's light shifted blue, then stalled. While she worked, Nathan reached across his broken chest seal and found the service chain tucked inside the armor. He did not pull the whole bundle free. Only one stamped strip of metal came loose. Bent at one corner, mud pressed deep into the letters. Kalira recognized the name from the triage list. Shaw. She watched him rub the plate against a clean section of sleeve, slow enough that each pass looked measured. That man is alive, she said. Low pulse. Not dead. I know. Then why clean it now? His thumb paused at the edge of the stamped letters. Water dripped from a cracked pipe overhead, landing 2 inches from the mat. Nathan shifted the plate away from the wet spot before answering. Because he'll ask for it when he wakes up. If he wakes. Nathan looked at her then, not offended, not soft. Just tired of people filing hope under unverified. When Kalira returned to the console, but her attention stayed on the small movement of his thumb. On Aurelia, personal markers are issued after distinction. Recognized victory. Confirmed service to house or command. A name must earn public weight. Nathan gave a breath that almost became a cough. Back home, they stamp your name before you prove anything. Government's cheap, but it'll give you that. That seems inefficient. Most decent things are. The recorder light blinked again. She keyed in the sequence he had given her. The console accepted the first layer and rejected the second. Nathan lifted 2 fingers toward a side switch. Not that one. Lower. Looks like a toaster lever. I do not know that appliance. Tragic culture gap. She found the switch anyway. The screen steadied. Withdrawal log. Theta 7 opened across the cracked glass. Kalira did not play it yet. She looked back at the metal strip in Nathan's hand. Metal does not feel neglect. He cleaned the last bit of mud from Shaw's name and set the plate on a dry corner of the mat, away from the leak, away from his own blood-darkened glove. No, his eyes moved to the console, then to the sealed hatch where the heat sweep still ticked through the frame. People watching do. The sentence did not accuse her. That made it harder to defend against. Kalira thought of Aurelian recovery halls, white stone floors, house banners, names sung only for those whose deaths improved a lineage. She thought of the 3 faint Aurelian markers west of the ridge, still waiting under mineral frost, while Captain Ravik counted which dead were politically portable. The console gave a soft tone. The field recorder was ready. Nathan's gaze found it, and stayed there. Play the clean channel first. There is more than one. Always. One for what happened. One for what they'll say happened. Kalira pressed the command. A Terran officer's voice entered the station, calm, remote, flattened by encryption and distance. Confirm Theta 7 inactive. No friendly assets remain inside the grid. Another voice answered, younger and less certain. Sir, telemetry shows movement from Carter's unit and multiple suit pings. Paper shifted near the microphone. The first voice returned, smoother than before. Signal contamination from Aurelian jamming. Update the log. Recovery narrative will cite enemy saturation. Nathan did not curse. He did not reach for the plate. He watched the screen like a man watching a barn burn after he had already led the horses out. Kalira stood very still beside the console. The old room hummed around them, full of treaty seals, bad air, and a machine that had just remembered enough to become dangerous. Your colonel knew, she said. Nathan closed his eyes for half a second. Colonel Marks knows lots of things. He abandoned you. He abandoned the account. His eyes opened, pale and steady through pain. That's where men like him start. Kalira looked at Shaw's clean service plate, set carefully out of the dripping water. For the first time, she understood the act was not sentiment. It was maintenance, a small repair against erasure. The second channel made Colonel Marks sound closer, which made it worse. The encryption cleaned his voice until every hesitation disappeared, leaving only the practiced calm of a man who had spent years learning how to turn consequences into paperwork. Kalira replayed the line once, then stopped the field recorder before Nathan had to hear it again. He lay still on the thermal mat, Shaw's clean service plate resting near his elbow, the small strip of stamped metal catching amber light whenever the console flickered. His eyes stayed open, not wide, not shocked, just awake in the way soldiers became awake when something inside them had already stepped past anger and found work to do. Marks pinned my stripes, he said. Kalira looked at the frozen waveform on the screen. You trusted him. I trusted the rank. That is different. Supposed to be. A low vibration passed through the treaty station floor. Kalira's visor lit with 3 moving contacts above the drainage cut, descending in a slow triangular pattern. Terran design. Small frame. Low heat. No weapon bloom. She magnified the scan and found the classification buried under old intelligence tags. Evidence containment drones, used after disputed engagements to isolate unstable data cores, scrub corrupted battlefield sensors, and protect official investigations from contamination. The last phrase had been written by someone who loved clean hands. Nathan saw her expression change. How many? 3 drones. Not combat class. That's polite of them. They are searching for active recorders. Less polite. The console flashed an incoming Terran command ping. Colonel Marks's live voice filled the cramped room before Kalira accepted it, which told her enough about his access. Sergeant Carter, this is Colonel Marks. Your telemetry is unstable, and you may be in proximity to hostile influence. Remain in place. Recovery assets are en route. Nathan closed his eyes. There it is. Kalira stepped toward the console. Do you want to answer? No. He opened his eyes again and looked at the stained ceiling, not at her. Leave it open. Why? People get generous with the account when they think you're too tired to spend it. Kalira left the line open. Outside, the drone skimmed over the hatch, sensor fans brushing the old metal with a sound like a refrigerator dying in an empty kitchen. Captain Ravik cut into the Aurelian band at the same time, his tone polished for observers who did not yet know they were observers. Voss, secure the Terran device and wait for adjudication. Do not move it through contested relay infrastructure. Kalira glanced at the treaty seals on the wall. The infrastructure exists for contested testimony. It exists under council authorization. The council is not under the ridge. Nathan breathed a faint laugh and paid for it with a wince. Kalira did not look back, though she wanted to. Ravik's voice hardened by 1 degree. Your house mark is attached to this transmission. I know. Your mother will also know. The station seemed to shrink around that sentence. Nathan turned his head slightly. That bad. Kalira watched the drone's blue scan lines sweep beneath the hatch seam. She chairs the war table. Of course she does. He swallowed. Mine chaired parent-teacher conferences. Same energy, smaller budget. Against her will, one corner of Kalira's mouth moved. Then the hatch pinged as the drones requested access through Terran emergency protocol. The console began a countdown to automatic compliance. Nathan reached for his helmet. His fingers slid off the cracked shell. My suit signature can pull them away from the recorder. No, you didn't hear the plan. I heard enough. Kalira. The name came out rough, stripped of command. She picked up the helmet and set it behind the console, beyond his reach. You moved yourself last once. That error has been logged. The countdown hit 30 seconds. Nathan's hand drifted to Shaw's service plate. He slid it into the cracked seal of his chest armor with two shaking fingers, tucking the metal where it would not fall when she moved him. Kalira saw the small act and said nothing. Some customs became larger when left unnamed. She unclipped Tanaka's recorder from the console and seated it beneath the inner plate of her armor, under the white Aurelian seal. Not hidden. Claimed. If the drones scanned it now, they would scan her house authority with it. If Ravik challenged it, he would challenge a protected statement in an open channel. If Marks moved against it, he would do so in front of two chains of command. Nathan understood enough to go quiet. That'll cost you. Likely. You sure? Kalira looked at the treaty map drawn by dead optimists under cracked glass, then at the hatch where careful machines waited to make the field convenient again. No. She opened a broadband emergency frequency and let the station carry her voice into the storm. This is Valkyrie Kalira Voss, operating under battlefield retrieval law and treaty provision. I carry protected testimony from Sergeant Nathan Carter and Sergeant Mei Tanaka regarding Theta 7 casualty status. Any unit that interferes will be included in the account. The hatch countdown stopped at 9 seconds. The drones outside went still, their sensors humming against the door with sudden restraint. Nathan stared at her back. No gratitude softened the room. No friendship arrived cleanly. But his hand rested over the place where Shaw's plate was tucked into his armor, guarding one small name against the machinery gathering outside. The drone stayed outside the hatch for 11 seconds, which was long enough for Kalira to understand they had not been stopped by mercy. They had been stopped by procedure. The broadband channel had turned the old station into a witness box, and every sensor sweep against the door now belonged to the account. Nathan seemed to understand that before she did. He watched the frozen countdown on the console, then the blue light sliding under the hatch, and breathed through his teeth. They're waiting for somebody upstairs to find a cleaner verb. Kalira lifted the recorder deeper beneath her armor seal. Cleaner than interfere? Assist. Secure. Stabilize. Pick your poison. Colonel Marks returned on the open line, gentle enough to insult everyone in the room. Nate, listen to me. You're injured. You don't know what this looks like from command level. Nathan did not reach for the microphone. He stared at the old treaty map, at the borderline running through Vera, 9 like a scar drawn with a ruler. Funny, he said quietly. He never called me Nate when I could stand up. Kalira moved to the rear wall and scraped frost from a service diagram. The station had 3 exits, 2 collapsed, 1 marked maintenance spine to relay mast. The passage ran beneath the ridge for 310 feet, then climbed through an access shaft. Narrow, low, bad for wings. Better than opening the front door and letting bureaucracy walk in wearing drone lights. Can you read Terran base markings? She asked. Nathan turned his head, slow and costly. Depends how cheap the contractor was. She carried him because there was no dignified alternative, and because asking permission would have wasted time they did not have. His hand found the cracked seal of his chest armor where Shaw's service plate had been tucked away. Only after his fingers confirmed the metal was still there did he lock his grip against her shoulder plate. Not hard enough to command, just enough to stay present. Kalira kicked open the rear panel. The tunnel beyond smelled of rust, old coolant, and wet concrete. Pipes crowded the ceiling. Warning labels peeled from the walls in English, Aurelian, and a third trade script no one had repainted after the ceasefire failed. Behind them, the hatch opened with a controlled hiss. Drone light entered the station and swept across the thermal mat, the tool roll, the empty dry corner where Shaw's plate had rested a minute before. Left at the first valve, Nathan murmured. Yellow handle. It is orange. Then it aged like the rest of us. She turned left. The first drone slipped into the tunnel behind them, but kept a measured distance. Its camera eye bright and patient. Ravik's voice joined Marx's on the channel, both men separated by species and united by tone. Voss, halt and await adjudication. Sergeant Carter, do not move disputed evidence through treaty infrastructure. Kalira adjusted Nathan's weight as her damaged wing clipped a pipe and sparked. He winced for her before he winced for himself. You're dragging left. I am aware. Second junction, take the service crawl. Relay mast should be uphill. Should be. Maps and reality had a rough divorce out here. She almost answered. Then the tunnel widened enough to show daylight far ahead. A pale slit cut through falling mineral frost. At the same moment, her visor marked 3 Aurelian recovery beacons behind them, west of the ridge, faint and unattended. Her people. Their markers pulsed outside the tunnel line, waiting under the same dirty weather she had crossed twice for Terrence. Nathan saw the reflection in her visor. He did not tell her to stop. That would have been easier to resist. He simply looked away, giving her the burden without touching it. Kalira kept walking for another 10 steps. The recorder beneath her seal felt suddenly lighter than it should have. Too light. A Terran withdrawal log alone could become a blade for Aurelia. Proof of human failure. A clean weapon for her mother's table. That was not testimony. That was victory with better lighting. She stopped beneath the access shaft. Nathan's breathing hitched against her armor. Problem. The account is incomplete. Yeah. He swallowed. Usually is. Drone light brightened behind them. Marks was still talking, something about medical risk and chain of custody. Kalira barely heard him. She looked from the shaft to the far slope, where Aurelian markers blinked through the storm. If I include only your casualties, my people will use it. Probably. If I include mine, your people will say I contaminated it. Definitely. You are unhelpful. His mouth twitched. I'm consistent. She lowered him carefully beside the ladder well. His boots touched the floor, but carried none of him. He noticed and pretended not to. The old mast blinked above them, close now, waiting for someone stubborn enough to wake it. Kalira unclipped a short-range retrieval line from her belt and fired it through the shaft toward the ridge, not at the mast, but toward the 3 faint Aurelian beacons beyond it. The line vanished into the white. Nathan watched her hands. That's gonna make both sides mad. Kalira tightened the cable around her gauntlet. Then both sides may finally listen. No smile passed between them. No friendship needed naming. She lifted Nathan again, angled her damaged wing away from the pipe, and climbed toward the cold daylight where the relay mast blinked like an old promise nobody had expected to keep. The relay mast stood on the ridge with half its casing stripped away, a skinny tower of treaty steel blinking through mineral frost. Someone had painted both flags on it years ago, Terran blue and Aurelian white, but weather had chewed the colors down to ghosts. Kalira set Nathan against the mast housing and kept one hand behind his shoulder until she felt him brace himself. His boots slid in the dirty ice. He caught the edge of the access panel with 2 fingers and held on like a man pretending a cliff was a porch rail. Panels under the lower lip, he said. Manual uplink should still have a crank. You can see that from there? No. I'm emotionally attached to bad design. Kalira ripped open the panel. The mast woke in layers. First amber, then blue, then a flat red line that cut across both their visors. Dual-party casualty confirmation required. Tanaka's field recorder, seated beneath Kalira's armor seal, pushed its data into the mast and stopped at the same wall. Terran withdrawal logs. Terran life signs. Terran casualty status. Not enough. The old treaty machine had been built by people suspicious enough to be useful. One side alone could accuse. 2 sides together had to account. Behind them, the drones rose from the access shaft and hovered at the ridge edge, cameras bright, movement careful. They could come closer. They did not. The open channel wrapped the mast in public procedure, and every inch mattered now. Colonel Marks's voice returned, thinner in the open air. Sergeant Carter, that relay is not calibrated for medical extraction. You're risking your recovery. Nathan looked at the red treaty line. He's still worried about the wrong patient. Kalira's retrieval cable jerked in her gauntlet. The line had caught one of the Aurelian markers downslope. She pulled, and a small white crystal slid through the frost, bumping over stone until it reached her boot. No name displayed. Only unit seal, time of loss, biological confirmation, house pending. House pending. The words landed harder than rank. She wiped the marker clean with her thumb and placed it on the mast tray. The red line did not move. Needs more, Nathan said. I know. You don't have to. Do not make this smaller for my comfort. He shut his mouth. That was one thing she had learned about him. He knew when a door had opened in someone else and had the discipline not to crowd it. Kalira pulled the second marker in. Then the third. One came cracked, its inner light flickering weakly. She held it longer than the others, recognizing the border pattern of a junior retrieval scout from Ravik's own formation. A soldier who had landed west of the ridge and never made it back to the official count. Sarah's voice came over a private channel, quiet enough to sound borrowed. Kalira, those markers are unclaimed. Not anymore. Nathan's shaking hand moved to the cracked seal of his chest armor. He pulled Shaw's clean service plate free and set it on the tray beside Tanaka's log and the tree-off tab. He did not explain. He did not need to. Kalira placed the 3 Aurelian crystals beside it. Terran metal, Aurelian crystal, living signals, lost signals. A dual-party register neither fleet could polish alone. The mast read them in silence. The red line blinked once and turned green. Public witness channel available. Neutral archive duplication armed. Nathan let out a breath that seemed to take half his strength with it. There's your door. Kalira leaned toward the pickup. Her mother would hear this. Ravik would hear this. Marks would hear this. So would every clerk, admiral, medic, entire junior officer who had ever watched a clean report bury a dirty field. She kept her voice low because volume would have cheapened it. This is Valkyrie Kalira Voss submitting dual-party casualty confirmation from Theta 7 under treaty provision. Attached are Terran withdrawal logs, Aurelian recovery markers, active life sign records, and recovered personal identifiers. No one on this ridge belongs to a report before they belong to the record. The mast fired upward. A thin white beam cut through frost and cloud, not dramatic enough for a monument, too bright to hide. The drones stayed where they were, suddenly useful only as witnesses. Nathan's head rested back against the mast. His eyes had nearly closed, but one hand still hovered near the tray, guarding the space between the objects rather than any one side. That'll make both sides mad, he murmured. Kalira watched the beam climb until the cloud swallowed it. Then it is balanced. His mouth moved, almost a smile. Careful. That sounded like a joke. It was a legal assessment. For the first time since she had landed on the battlefield, the silence that followed did not feel empty or managed. It felt occupied by Rain's breathing in a rescue sled, by Shaw's plate glowing under treaty light, by 3 unnamed Aurelian markers no longer waiting alone, and by a wounded human who had made her understand that an account was not a weapon unless someone chose to hold it like one. The beam reached orbit before the rescue shuttles reached the ridge, and that order mattered more than anyone wanted to admit. By the time Terran medics broke through the frost line and Aurelian recovery craft settled beside them, the public channel had copied itself into both fleets, 3 neutral treaty archives, and every command deck pretending not to watch. The drones lowered to the ground and folded their sensor fans, suddenly careful little machines with nowhere clean to stand. Nathan Carter saw the steady green light on the mast and let his hand drop from the tray. Kalira caught it before it hit the ice. Not gently enough to be pity. Not formally enough to be protocol. Just fast. Ashley Rains came off the first shuttle with a brace locked around one arm and dried blood along her jaw seal. She limped straight past 2 officers trying to speak with her and crouched beside Nathan. Her fingers went to his throat, then his pupils, then the clot patch at his ribs. You look like roadkill, Sarge. Nathan's eyes opened a fraction. Missed you too. Rains pressed an injector to his neck and looked away while it fired, as if the device needed supervision more than her face did. Shaw's alive. Moreno won't shut up about his dog. Tanaka's asking who stole her recorder. Kalira touched the plate beneath her armor. Filed under protected testimony. Rains looked up at her for the first time. No smile. No forgiveness. But she nodded once, a medic's kind of treaty. 5 hours later, aboard the joint medical vessel Haven Bell, Nathan lay propped in a recovery bay where everything smelled of antiseptic, hot wiring, and coffee no one had made well. His armor was gone. Without it, he looked too human for the trouble he had caused. Pale skin, bruised cheek, brown hair cut short, one hand wrapped in sensor tape. Kalira stood near the door, because sitting felt like claiming peace too early. High Matriarch Vale Voss entered without guards. Her white insignia caught the overhead light, clean and sharp against the room's scuffed floor. She looked at her daughter first, then at Nathan, then at the cracked wing harness resting on a chair. The war table has opened inquiry. Kalira said nothing. Vale continued. Terran Command has suspended Colonel Marks pending review. They object to the relay's chain of custody. Nathan opened one eye. They would. Vale turned toward him. You appear unsurprised. Ma'am, men like that don't deny the fire. They argue about who smelled smoke first. Rains adjusted his foreline harder than necessary. Kalira stepped to the bed and removed her spear from its back mount. Vale's posture changed by a degree. That was enough to make the room colder. Kalira held the weapon across both palms and lowered it to the edge of Nathan's blanket. Aurelian steel met hospital cotton. Equal witness, she said. Nathan looked at the spear, then at her. I'm not Aurelian. No. Her eyes moved to the evidence pouch on his bedside table, where Shaw's clean service plate rested beside one unnamed Aurelian crystal. But you carried the standard my people forgot. The hearing began under protest because the open channel had made postponement look like fear. Nathan arrived in a med chair with Rains behind him and Kalira at his side, damaged wing folded, house mark uncovered. Colonel Marks sat beneath a Terran flag, hands folded, sorrow arranged across his face like a uniform inspection. The withdrawal log played. His own voice filled the chamber, calm enough to hurt. No one shouted. Shouting would have helped him. Then the dual-party register appeared. 6 Terran life signs, 3 Aurelian recovery markers, recovered personal identifiers, and 1 sector marked inactive while people still breathed inside it. When the panel asked Nathan what remedy he sought, the room leaned toward money, rank, punishment, something with a form number. Nathan lifted his taped hand toward the display. Read it. The Terran delegate frowned. Sergeant. The register. Out loud. All of it. One by one. The chamber gave weight back to what the field had nearly lost. Ashley Rains bowed her head at Shaw's name. Vale closed her eyes when the unclaimed Aurelian scout marker entered public record. Marks looked smaller with every line, not because anyone struck him, but because the dead and the living had become inconveniently specific. When the last identifier faded, Nathan settled back, exhausted. That's all. Later, by the observation glass, Vera, 9 turned below them under torn clouds and pale weather. Kalira placed the unnamed crystal beside Shaw's plate on the narrow ledge. Nathan studied it. We'll find who carried that. Yes, she said. No oath. No anthem. Just a word with work inside it. They stood together in the reflected starlight. 2 enemies no longer useful to the lies that had made them enemies, while below them an old battlefield kept its silence and, for once, was not allowed to keep its dead unnamed. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If it stayed with you, leave your thoughts in the comments and tell us which moment hit hardest. Subscribe to Intergalactic Untold for more cinematic HFY stories from the forgotten corners of the galaxy.